Welcome back to Redirecting. In this video, we're going to be talking again about the arresting of your thoughts. And more specifically, I want you to stop giving yourself permission to make excuses. Because a lot of people, I can't do this, I can't do that, nobody loves me, nobody likes me, it's too hard. It's too difficult. It's too far. It's out of my reach. I can't help it. It's like you're giving yourself permission to make excuses because for some reason the excuses have become your security blanket. You think if you throw up the excuse, then you are excused from progressing. And a lot of people fall into that because they really don't have a drive to do anything beyond what they are already doing. And so you give yourself permission to make excuses by telling others what you can't do or what you feel that you're unable to achieve. And believe it or not, that becomes a burden on other people, especially when it's required of you to do something. Imagine a child coming to their parent and the child is hungry and the parent says, well, I don't have any food, or I can't afford to feed you. Now, your problem has just become that child's problem, you see, and they might not even comprehend or understand what I can't means. All they know is they have a rumbling belly and that you are the person who brought them into this world who is responsible for taking care of that need. And so when you give yourself permission to make excuses, you are giving yourself permission to fail as well. There's an old saying that I used to hear some of my elders say. They used to say, nothing fails but a try. Do you get that? Nothing fails but a try. How can you fail if you never tried? But see, what a lot of people do is they actually announce or accept. They didn't even put one foot in front of the other to even determine if they could make the journey. They just determined within themselves, going back to the thought, they didn't bring into captivity or arrest that thought that said they couldn't do it. The thought said you can't do it, and so they verbalized it, and they said, well, I can't do it. And so they accepted failure because they or arrest their thoughts. Now, if you understand how important it is to arrest your thoughts, you would never say that I can't. I don't care what it is. Look at it like this. If you look at it like this, when you say you can't and there's nobody else who's going to do it for you and you've already determined that you can't, you've given up, right? What if you're in a situation where I can't is not an option? Okay, a good example would be when a woman is having a baby, okay? When you are pushing that baby out, I'm not talking about somebody who's being set up for a cesarean. I'm talking about you're fully dilated, okay? There is nothing that can stop you from getting that baby out of there. Okay, of course, there are hospitals that will try to convince you that a cesarean is the best option because they want that extra money. But when you're in a situation where you are fully dilated and just say the baby is just is right there at the door, almost out, I can't is not an option. You got to do what you have to do to get that baby out, because there have been moments where when you're having a baby, you feel like you wish you can turn back. I wish I can turn back and just stop this whole process, but it's too late now. When that baby is about to come out, a woman, you can't say, I can't. You have to finish the job, okay? There's nobody's going to push that baby out for you. Once that baby has reached a certain point and you're fully dilated, the job is on you, okay? Of course, I'm not talking about any life-threatening situation. I'm talking about where a person just, they're tired, they're aching, they're in pain, and they just want to give up. You can't give up. Okay. Um, there are other situations where you can't give up as well. Um, I remember one time we were in the city of Detroit. My sister and I had gone to church, and by the time we got there, our church was actually going to visit with another church, but we had to meet at the church building in order to get a ride to the next location. And by the time we got there, because we were pretty much walking in a blizzard to get to church, and we had a long way to walk. By the time we got there, everyone was gone. And so we had a choice to make. Either you stand here and freeze or you start walking back home. Now, I can remember being so cold to where we knew of some church members who lived near the church. So we went, knocked on their door, couldn't get in. And we were trying to see if there was somebody who didn't go that would let us in. And so we didn't find anyone who would let us in. So we had to make that trek all the way back home in the middle of a blizzard. Now, we could have said, I can't do it, and just stood there and froze to death. But because we were faced with a situation to where nobody was coming to pick us up, there was nobody at the church building, nobody at these houses that we went to, nobody was going to let us in. We had to trek our way back through the snow back home. I can't was not an option unless you were ready to die that night, you see. And so when you give yourself permission to make excuses, you are just giving up. And a give up attitude, you're not going to get anywhere in life. As a matter of fact, nobody wants to be around that kind of person. You want to be the kind of person who's going to press your way through no matter what, and regardless to how situations look. Now, one thing I want to say, from time to time, I will get people who will, they will look at your life the way it is. And I know I've said this before, but I want you all to get this and understand this. Don't look at another person's life the way it is now, okay, and say, well, it's easy for you to say. I've had people say it's easy for you to say because look at ABC. But what these people don't understand is that I've been in some of the positions they've been in before, going through some of the things that they're going through now. And I had to press my way through. And it wasn't always easy. But when my husband and I learned that we were going to continue to go through the same test over and over until we passed the test. Unlike school, where if you don't pass the test, they just fail you, and that's the end of that. But for us in this walk, in this life, that's not an option. Okay, for us, it wasn't an option. We had to continue to go through the same test over and over and over again until we passed the test. And when we realized that that's the way it was, that last time that we had to go through a particular thing, we said, you know what? We got to fight our way through this because we are not going to go on to the next level or the next phase until we make it past this level. You see? And so we need to stop giving ourselves permission to make excuses. I don't care what it is, how big or how small. If you have a goal of losing weight, and your excuse is that you don't have access to healthy food or good food, you've just given yourself permission to make excuses, you see? And you have to stop giving yourself that permission. The importance of eating right and eating healthy food. I'm talking about your health and your life. This is a life and death situation, but a lot of us don't see it that way. But if you understood that it was a life and death situation, you would do whatever it was you could to make it possible for you to have access to healthy food. Now, I have given example after example after example, and what I've determined is that some people are just plain lazy. Okay, they don't want to explore alternatives, or they don't want to ask this person or that person. There are churches in various communities. Now, if you don't want to deal with the church, this I know for a fact. Growing up in the city of Detroit, there are vacant lots everywhere. And there are city officials, wherever you might live, you might not live in Detroit, they will give you permission to use city-owned lots. if it's for something productive. If you present to them a plan and you say, this is what you want to do, most of the time they will give you permission. But a lot of people don't even want to take that step because they have gotten a lazy mindset and they are looking forward to someone else outside of them to help them through their situation. Now, one thing that I've talked about before on this channel is how I've seen Gentiles who will work by themselves. There's this one guy, I think he makes 75,000 a year, and he don't even own all of the property that he grows food on. What he did is he spoke to his neighbors and he made a deal with them. He said, I tell you what, let me do the work. I don't have the land, but you do. Let me do the work. I'll till the ground. And I'm not talking about no acres either. I'm talking about just city lots, city property, okay? Just regular size city backyards or front yards. And he said, I will do the work and I will split the food with you. And so he made that his passion. He would split the food with the homeowners. They would take their portion. He would take his portion and eat from it and sell the rest, and created a 75,000 a year income. 75,000 working alone. So this is why I say you can't make any excuses. It's just too easy to do something, even if you have children. Listen, if you were to take even that guy's method and working with other people's property who would agree to allow you to till the ground and do the work, this is something that children could do with you. In school, do it during school hours. After school, let them come and help you. You see, so all of the excuses are just no more. They can be thrown out of the window now, and stop giving yourself permission to make those excuses. Now, I know there are rare cases where there are people who might be handicapped and have a certain sickness upon them. Even in those cases, there are organizations that you can get in contact with to make your vision or your goal known. I've seen too many times where handicapped people are out here doing what they have to do to take care of themselves. But as long as we give ourselves permission, and believe it or not, most of the people who give themselves permission to make excuses are people who are able-bodied, people who can do something, but they just don't want to. They've developed a lazy mindset. Notice I said mindset. They're not arresting that laziness that has set up in their minds, is moved in, is taking up shelter there, and they're not arresting it. They're not saying, look, this is not the right way to be. I can't sit still like this. I have a need, and nobody else is going to fulfill that need for me. You got to talk yourself out of being lazy. You see, especially if you have children. Now, there was a story that was shared with me by a couple of people. There was a young woman, I believe she has 11 children. If I'm not mistaken, I think she lives down south somewhere. I can't remember what state she lives in, but she found herself without a job, and she has 11 children. And she was crying and saying that she's having a difficult time taking care of those 11 children. Now, her situation is a whole other story that I'm not going to get into right now. I will say is you got to be very careful. I don't know what her marital status was when she had those children, but women have got to be very careful. If you're not married, that you're not putting yourself in a situation to where you're bringing all those children into the world and you can't take care of them, because job security is not promised to anyone. But in her case, I would definitely say that to take care of her family and her children. She's going to have to think outside of the box, because right now our government is not real stable in terms of being able to, or even wanting to take care of or help and assist people who have needs. They have requirements now, and we've got to be very careful of the situations we allow ourselves to get into, okay? Because your children don't know or don't care about your situation. If you have a 3 and 4 year old and you say that you lost your job, they don't even know what that means. Some of them don't, okay? You have some that are very bright who will understand that. But we as adults, we've got to start arresting our thoughts and not giving ourselves permission to make excuses, but trying to figure out and maneuver our way through this life. Okay? Many of us have had hard times. I grew up very poor. Okay? And the first few years of our marriage, we were very poor, you see. But instead of us sitting back making excuses for poverty or why it was upon us the way it was, we said, okay, we're going to do this, and this until something gives. We kept working at it until something gave. And that is what I want to encourage you all to do as well. Don't give yourself permission to make excuses, because excuses will add up to zero, to nothing, no progress. You can't make progress by making excuses. The only time you can make progress, or the only way to make progress, is to make moves forward, moving forward. Okay, making progress, moving forward, not standing still or looking back. Okay. I know I have said a whole lot in this video as well. I'm hoping that this series is going to be a baraka to those who are kind of trapped or stuck inside of their own brain and they don't know how to get out. You see, because they are allowing their thoughts. They're allowing their thoughts to dictate what they do. Instead of arresting those negative thoughts, they just let them take. Don't let negative thoughts live in your mind and determine your future for you, okay? Because nobody outside of you is responsible for you. That's just the way it is. Okay, family, with that, I will say shalom. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.